Good evening. Good evening. I'm Jennifer Rabin. I have the extraordinary privilege of being president of the incredible Hunter College, the place the American dream still comes true, and the home of the Roosevelt House Public Policy Institute. On behalf of Harold Holzer, the Jonathan Fanton Director of Roosevelt House, and myself, it is a great pleasure to welcome you all to this event honoring Dr. Dennis Mukwege. There could be no, yeah, definitely. There could be no more appropriate place in which to celebrate this great human rights advocate than here in Roosevelt House. This was, of course, Franklin and Eleanor Roosevelt's New York home for 25 years until they moved into the White House. It is where they raised their children and where Franklin recuperated from polio because it had an elevator, a rarity in a private home in those days. This is where FDR launched the political career that would make him the governor of New York and the president of the United States. And is where Eleanor Roosevelt began a lifetime of public engagement that would make her one of history's most passionate champions for human rights, the same great cause to which Dennis now devotes his life. Touched by the suffering she saw as a young volunteer teacher of impoverished children, Eleanor devoted her life to defending the poor and downtrodden, ending the exploitation of women and children, and opposing discrimination against minorities were her causes. She worked tirelessly to ensure women would exercise the right to vote that they had just won, and she campaigned for fair wages and decent working hours for women and minorities, and helped move the nation to finally end child labor. When her husband became president, Eleanor lobbied him constantly to appoint women to federal jobs, and FDR listened. In fact, one of the pivotal moments in American history took place right here in Roosevelt House in an upstairs study when FDR asked Eleanor's friend and fellow human rights advocate, Frances Perkins, to become the first woman to serve in a presidential cabinet. When Roosevelt's successor, Harry Truman, appointed Eleanor Roosevelt as a delegate to the newly formed United Nations, many of the representatives dismissed her as a well-intentioned but out-of-touch elderly woman to be treated politely, but not taken seriously. Oh, how they misjudged her. She took charge of writing the UN's Declaration of Human Rights, and then, when many of the world's authoritarian regimes sought to sabotage it, she unleashed the determination, political skills, and yes, toughness acquired in a lifetime of battles to win approval by the General Assembly. One of the things she told wavering delegates sums up much of her own philosophy. She said, quote, "Do what you feel in your heart to be right, for you'll be criticized anyway. You'll be damned if you do and damned if you don't." All of us at Hunter are extremely proud that Eleanor and Franklin's New York home has become a treasured part of our campus for more than 75 years. The program in human rights that we established here in Roosevelt House is both a tribute to their memory and a means of preparing future generations to carry on the great cause that was vitally important to them. And how wonderfully appropriate it has been, therefore, to have Dennis Mukwege here with us in Roosevelt House as a teacher and a role model for our human rights students. His courage and compassion are truly inspiring. He is one of the world's most forceful voices in denouncing the use of sexual violence as a weapon of war in his homeland and other conflict zones. In his hospital, he not only repairs the horrific physical damage that is done to rape victims, but also helps heal their minds and their spirits. He rebuilds lives as well as bodies. The Nobel Peace Prize Committee said of him, quote, "His basic principle is that justice is everyone's business." His friend and fellow human rights campaigner, Eve Ensler, whom you will hear from shortly, said it even better, as she usually does, when she wrote, "I know of no man who has given his life more completely to ending violence against women." It has been an honor for all of us at Hunter College to have Dennis as our colleague here in Roosevelt House. Those of us who've had the privilege of listening to him speak have been deeply moved by his passion and uplifted by his determination to carry on the fight for the lives and rights of women. So we thank you, Dennis, so much for being our guest. I want to take a moment to acknowledge the woman who brought Dennis to Hunter College, Jessica Neuwirth, who is the Rita Hauser Director of our Human Rights Program. The program could not be in better hands, for Jessica is one of the world's foremost rights activists, whether it was serving with Amnesty International or working for the United Nations Commission on Human Rights. And Jessica, we are just thrilled to have you with us. And I also want to acknowledge sitting next to you is Jonathan Fanton, who also was his dream to have a human rights program at Roosevelt House. So welcome to you, Jonathan, as well. And now I am so grateful to be able to welcome back a really phenomenal woman who will be in dialogue with Dennis tonight, Eve Ensler. Eve, as well as becoming almost, as I've said, ready to be put on the Hunter faculty because she's here working with our students so often, is also a renowned playwright and the founder of V-Day, a global movement to end violence against women. Many years ago, Eve was one of the first supporters of Dr. Denis Mukwege and has done so much to raise awareness and mobilize advocacy to end sexual violence in the Congo and around the world. In 2011, Eve created the City of Joy, a place near Panzi Hospital where survivors of sexual violence turn their pain into power. Through her work, both as an advocate and as a brilliant playwright, Eve has made us all more aware of sexual violence and the role we all have to play in ending it. Please welcome Denis Mukwege in conversation with Eve Ensler.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. Are all these seats taken? Because if not, there are people standing. Should we have them come sit down? What do you think?
Some of them, the people are coming, but there may be some.
Okay, because there's some over there. So I always hate for people to stand when there are seats. Anyway, welcome everybody, and thank you, Jennifer, for that wonderful introduction, and thank you for having us all here. And Jessica, thank you for bringing Dr. Mukwege and making this night happen. And I just want to honor my V-Day team, Susan Swan and Tony Montanari and Purva Pandey-Coleman, who are here tonight, who were really responsible for obviously co-founding City of Joy with Dr. Mukwege. And I want to bring in Christine Schuler-Descrever, even though she's not here tonight. She's also the co-founder of City of Joy and is very much a part of our team. I feel so emotional being here tonight because really in 2006, I was invited by the UN, and I have to say it was the only time the UN has ever invited me to do anything. I think the vagina and the U and the V never really got together. But they invited me to interview Dr. Mukwege, and I was so shocked that the UN was inviting me to do anything that I read, and I wasn't going to do it, to be honest with you, because we were already involved in Afghanistan and in Bosnia and in Haiti, and I felt like we couldn't even begin to think about how we could be involved in supporting women in the Congo. And then I read Dr. Mukwege's resume, and it was so shocking and it was so amazing that I couldn't but say yes to interviewing him. And I have to say, you know, in 2006, we were sitting in the New York NYU Law School, and there were hundreds and hundreds of people. And I remember I would practice for an hour to say his name. And Dr. Mukwege, and I got out there and I said, Dr. Muskaga. It was a total disaster. But what I most remember, and I'm really going to get very emotional, is Dr. Mukwege's eyes were bloodshot from exhaustion, but also from all the horror and the terror and the misery he'd been witnessing. And that evening really changed my life in so many ways. I couldn't believe I had met a man who had given and was giving his life to ending rape, to caring for women who were being raped, to putting himself on the front line where he was risking his life to service and repair the bodies of women who were being raped. And as a survivor myself and as someone who had worked for many, many years, working to bring violence against women to the attention of the world, I felt like I had found my soulmate in a way. I felt like, oh my God, I will do anything for this man. I will literally do anything. And that really began an incredible relationship and partnership that's gone on now for 13 years. And it's very emotional for me to be sitting here after I had the honor of being at the Nobel Peace Prize to watch Dr. Mukwege receive the Nobel Peace Prize and to hear his amazing speech and to really think how far we've come in 13 years where no one even knew about the Congo and no one cared about the Congo and what was happening to women and the people of the Congo, and to see Dr. Mukwege honored in such a way was really, it speaks greatly to who this extraordinary man is and what he's done. and what the women of Congo have done, because it's been a joint effort. So I feel here we are 13 years later, and we're still doing the work. I think maybe I want to begin by asking you, looking back over the 13 years, what has changed and what hasn't changed?
This really is a good question. But I want to thank Jennifer and Jessica to give us this opportunity really to get this talk with Eve. It's really for me so touching to be with you again and be talking about sexual violence, not only in Congo, but all over the world. And if I can say about what changed since 13 years, I can remember that at this time, to talk about sexual violence, I was seen as not a normal man. I was not a true man to talk about sexual violence. And all the time when I was just starting to talk about this question, I could see that the reaction was just to say, oh, stop. We don't want to hear about this question. But really, what changed really, I can say that today, I'm so happy to see that we can discuss this question, get a room full of people who want to talk, to learn, to act. This is very positive. But we can see that in the room, we still have the majority are women. But I want really to say thank you for all the men who are here, because you are the one who can make things happen. The question of sexual violence is not a women question. It's a question of our humanity. And I think that the last 100 years, women worked a lot to fight for equality, to fight against sexual violence. And they did a lot. And really, my hope is that men can take over and support. Because when women are raped, it's not really only women, it's our humanity as a whole who is raped. So we need to take more responsibility. And I want to say, even if men are minority here, but we still get men involving in this question. And this is very positive. You can remember 10 years ago, we created V-Men to try to bring men in the question. But our movement is not really as strong as V-Day are. It's really more strong than women. So I want to say that there are other things to change. If today we can talk about Congo and what is happening in Congo, this really is something very positive. I know that Congo was classed as the capital of rape. But for many people, Congo, where was Congo on the map? It was very difficult to know really where is Congo. But now I can say that people can't say we are not aware about what's going on in Congo. This also is very positive. And I know that you did a lot. If you can remember, we did a tour in the state to try to talk about this question. And it brings a lot of awareness on this question. So maybe the last things, 20 years ago, for women to talk about rape, it was really very difficult. When women were coming in my hospital, most of the time, just using the kind of symbol to try to bring me to understand what happened. And when I read about Eve Ensler talking about the monologue Virgin, it was really something I can say that now women in my country, they just understand that they can talk about le vagin. And this is really, for me, it's really a progress, because why men rapists are just protected. It's because of the silence. And to talk about the vagina is like, okay, we can't talk about this. It's a shame. But it's a shame, but you are destroying. And I think that when really women can be able to talk, the freedom of speech about this question, I think that there also, I have an impression that 20 years ago, we started to talk about to break silence, and now it's Me Too. And I hope that if really women can start to talk about this question and try to shift the shame from women to perpetrators, this can be a big change, and we are on the part of this. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to applaud Dr. Mukwege's English, because he never believes he speaks. Can everyone please tell him what wonderful English he speaks? You know, I want to tell a story about Dr. Mukwege in regards to the vagina, because when we first met each other, it was really wonderful because he said to me, "You're the only person who will talk about vaginas." And it was, that may sound like a very strange thing, but he was a gynecologist, and what he was witnessing was the destruction of women's vaginas. And he couldn't talk about it because people in Congo thought he was mad, you know? At City of Joy, which Dr. Mukwege and Christine and I and Vide all founded together, we were talking for a long time, like what would be the, you know, the courses and the programs, and of course the women were totally part of creating what that was. And one of the programs at City of Joy is sexual education. And I have to say it's the best sexual education program I've seen anywhere in the world. It's really quite astounding. And if we could have the same kind of programs in America, we'd have far less violence and far less sexual violence and far less STDs and far less, we can just go down the list. But I want you to talk a little bit about what it was like for you to begin to teach that course at City of Joy. Because I just remember the day when you asked the women to talk, to draw pictures of their vaginas, and to go out and to look at their vaginas for the first time, and how radicalizing that was for women there. And maybe you could just talk a little bit about that first course, that first, you know, class.
Yeah, when we start this education, sexual education at the City of the Joy, yes, of course we could not talk about sexuality, to talk about violence, without really talking about the body of the women. And what really touched me was that more than 80% of women in the classroom of 90 girls, more than 80%, they said, "We have never seen our vagina." And for me, this was strange. And it was like all of them, their body was completely dissociated for their own mind. So their body was completely out of themselves. And so I just asked to buy a mirror, and I asked them to go in their bedroom and just see their vagina, how it looked like. And the day after, they came and asked them to draw and show me if really they know where is the vagina. And I was so surprised to see that many girls, for them, really, it was a strange thing. And there, most of them start just, I asked the question, do you love your body? Most of them, my body is very dangerous. It's because of my body that men are raping me. If I'm suffering, it's because of my body, because of my vagina. So the vagina was something really out of the body and a dangerous thing for them. And to get the vagina was just to get something very dangerous on your body. So we started to talk really about the vagina and bring women to understand that their body belongs to them, and they're the one who have to give a value for their body. And the body is not dangerous. It's only because they are not protected as human. It's not because of the vagina that they are in danger, but it's because only they are not protected as a human. And I can say that after 6 months, all the girls were very proud to get their vagina. At the beginning, most of them were saying, if I would like to change something on my body, is to remove the vagina, to don't get it, so I can be free and maybe men will not see me in a bad way. But after 6 months, all the girls was just shining and very happy to be women and very happy to talk about their vagina. And this really was something very wonderful. And it was not only to talk about their vagina, but to love their own body. Because, when they don't love their body, the consequence is really terrible. Then they can be used by everyone and have impression that, okay, this is really, my body is not, it's not me. But when they integrate that, this is my body, I love it, I know that I mean, because I'm who I am, it just makes a big difference in the City of the Joy. And I think that it was also the way that women protect themselves. I could see even women, girls, in the City of the Joy, talking about rape. So I'm just saying, since it happened to me, I don't want someone to disturb me. If he wants my body, he can just do what he wants. And for me, it's just, if he can let me safe, I can accept. But after 6 months, their body come back to themselves. And they own their own body. And they become very proud to be women. And you could see for many seniors to make up, to try to, just to be a woman. And this was really wonderful at the City of the Joy.
And by the way, now we have over 1,200 women who have graduated, and every single class has gone through that same process. And I remember, too, we had a conversation with a group of women who had gone away from City of Joy and had come back. And what Dr. Mukwege always teaches and what Christine teaches and all the social workers teach is that don't be with a man just to be with a man. Be with a man who respects and honors and cherishes your body, your vagina, your being, and if not, don't be with a man. Then it's not the right time. And I remember we were having this gathering of women who would come back after a year. Do you remember? And they were all sitting around, and Dr. Mukwege asked them, so how is your life going, right? And they said, we're great. Everything is wonderful, right? And then what did you say? Or have any of you married? Have any of you found men? And they went, no, none of us have. Do you remember?
Yeah.
And they were like, you told us to wait for a man who would honor and respect us, and we haven't found one. But to me, that was so amazing that they had formed collectives, and they had formed groups, and they had formed all these things with their sisters to inform and educate, and they had come to really honor themselves in a way where they were holding out until the right person came. I think it would be really great to talk a little bit about, you've been doing this work for 13 years, right? You've traveled the world. I know because I traveled a lot with you for a long time. In thinking about how the world has come, and also winning the Nobel Peace Prize, right? How has it changed how people see Congo and how people are responding and making interventions with Congo?
Yeah, before to talk about Congo, I want to say that traveling a lot, I have seen that sexual violence in conflict is everywhere. Everywhere. You can travel from Asia, Africa, Europe, America. We have this problem. And really, sometimes people don't want to talk about it. It's only because men have impression that they can rape other women, but not their own mothers, their own sisters, and their own daughters. So rape is normal when it is for others. But when it happens in your own community, in your own family, it's a shame. And it's like women belong to the community, to the family, and the society, and not belong to themselves. So everywhere, I travel, you can see that each country have his own social norms. But the big question is, in all these countries, when the war just start, you can see that women are victims of sexual violence. And it can happen in different ways. I was in Iraq, it was for Yazidi women, it was to be slaves and be sold by many times. In Congo is rape with extreme violence to destroy the body of women. The goal is not to kill them, but to destroy them, and that just show that we are able to do all these terrible things on the body of women. I was in ex-Yugoslavia, and there it was more to try to clean, ethnic cleansing. Exactly. And I think that you can see that it's a different way to do, but everywhere in conflict, rape is used as a weapon of war. And when it comes to Congo, this really is a terrible thing that happened in Congo, because now it's 20 years where women are suffering with this question. And it's not only women, because when women are raped in front of their husband, the family, the society, so they are traumatized. Physically, they are destroying them, but also mentally, they are destroyed. And when it happened, and it happened in front of all the community, so the husband, children are also traumatized. And in this context, I can say that now in Congo, we have a big problem. Maybe in the hospital, we can heal them physically, but when it comes to trauma, we have a big problem, because even the children born after rape is now start to become a big problem in my country. Because all these children, most of the times, are rejected by the family, by the community, and themselves, they live in violence, so you can imagine that themselves, they will be violent. And now we have children, boys who have around 18 years old, and this really is a big problem in Congo.
I think that can't be understated what a big problem it is, because I think because the Congo was so intervened upon by so many other countries, and because so many women got raped for mining and for the production of coltan and other things that would get exported and shipped out, there are so many women who had children who were the product of rape. And many women come to City of Joy who have had children who were the product of rape, and a big part of the recovery process is women coming to learn to love their children, if that's a choice they make. Nothing's enforced, but many women come to City of Joy because they want to learn how to love their children, because they are so confused by looking at the face of their rapist every day on their child, right? And I think part of what I've really come to see in terms of women in Congo, is how amazing they are, that they actually are coming in to go through a process where they can come to love their children, right? But there are many women who aren't going through that process. And so what's happening, like you're saying, is there are many boys particularly who are being born without love, and who are being born and thrown into exile. And they are becoming, now they are the carriers of rape. And now they are being raped into the Congolese community. And I think this is a very dangerous thing. And I learned from Dr. Mukwege early on, that, and I really felt when I first went to the Congo and I stayed for weeks and weeks and listened to women telling stories, that there have been rape in many, many countries during war, and they go on. But there is something about the conflagration in the Congo of capitalism and the mines and economic and racism and a history of insane and mad colonialism, just rapid, violent colonialism, and the kind of rape that's going on, that is so explosive and so devastating that if we don't treat it, it's going to spread and spread and spread everywhere. And in fact, we've seen that over 13 years, how it's spread to Kenya and how it's spread. We can go down the list of countries, like, because it's been licensed in one place and the international community has not had a strong outcry about it, has not said this is unacceptable, what's happening to the Congolese. It's now gone to, we can just name a country where we see that kind of spread, and also where it's been used to get mines, to get more economic gain, to intervene on the natural resources that belong to the indigenous people of a country that another outside country and usually corporations are taking. So maybe you can talk a little bit about what are the interventions that you have seen that have really been successful at stopping the rapes and stopping the escalation of violence? I know it's a hard question.
It's really a hard question, because I think that today I can say that we don't really see a good policy to fight against sexual violence in the conflict areas or, yeah. But the big problem is that when you ask to women, for example, to give proofs when it's happened, in a normal situation, it's already very difficult to get proof of rape. I know that you can get proof maybe for children. When you have the rape on children, especially medically, when the children are under 5 years, they really, sometimes you can get their genital is completely destroyed, or when sometimes they're shooting on the genital or putting for example, to put stakes or things like that in the genital. There you can get proof. But when people are fighting during the war, to ask women just to bring proof of rape, how they can collect this proof? It's not possible. And when they try to go to justice, of course the judges will ask them to prove that it happened. And there I think that we have a big problem with impunity. And today my big question is, we need to be more creative to try to see what can be done in fighting against impunity. Because this is really something we are talking about, fight against impunity, is that just talking about it. But when it happens that women are more strong to go to justice, the first question is, can you bring us the proofs of rape? And I think that for this, maybe now women are speaking out about this question. The second step, I hope that is really to help women how to collect proof for the justice. This can be a big step, because there are things that women will not feel ashamed to go to justice, because they know that they can get this proof that judges are going to ask them. And I don't really see many steps, positive steps, in fighting against sexual violence. You have many good laws. In many countries you can find that, yeah, this last year, really, we make many good laws. But in the implementation of these laws, we need to do more.
Mm-hmm. And I think that has a lot to do with the role of patriarchy, if I may say so. Because I think, having been around the world and looked at, for example, the comfort women who, in the Philippines, for example, and across Asia, who've been waiting for justice for over 70 years, who were raped by the Japanese government during World War II, who have stood outside vigiling every Thursday for 70 years, and many have died, and many are very elderly now and can't even stand there anymore. They have never received justice, right? They've never received justice. And we can look at Bosnia, and we can look at Haiti, and you know, as I said to you today, have we ever heard a man apologize for sexual violence, and have we ever seen real justice in war zones? So I think part of the question is, right, what has to happen in terms of the will of the world to shift, to make those laws, to make implementation something that happens? What is the mechanism that is required now, you know?
Yeah, I think that in many countries where I travel, I think that the big problem is the political will. I can just take the example of South Korea, where women were raped 70 years ago.
Yeah.
And the only one thing that they're asking is apology. And it's sorry that if women can demonstrate each Wednesday just to try to get the apology, and no one is able to do it. So I think that you said about patriarchy, I think that this is really a big problem. Women, we should just understand that to rape is a terrible thing that can happen to a woman. And when it happens, most of the things that we can do, if you don't apologize, the women they will be in a situation that it's so difficult to treat their psychological wound. And I think that there we need a political will. But how to create this political will? This is a big question.
No, I was thinking this last night, and I'm sure all of us were watching that frightening State of the Union address, that one of the things I was really struck by was that a predator was speaking to our country, a known predator, someone who we know is a sexual assaulter, someone who's been accused of rape, and we're all going along as if this hasn't happened. Right? There's like a double reality. It's the same way you're talking about women being disassociated from their bodies. We're disassociated from political reality. We're all sitting there saying this is okay, right? We have a leader of this country who is a known predator. It's a fact. It's not negotiable. Many women have come forward. His own wife is accused of rape. So when that's happening, how are we then supposed to call out rapists in our schools and in war zones and in other things when the leaders of countries, and the leader of your own country, I'm afraid, same thing. The leader, shall we go down the list? Duterte in the Philippines, Modi in India. Can we go down the list? Where is there a country now that is not turning towards this mentally, it's a form of derangement, of sexual predatory derangement. And I think part of it is like, there has to be something that escalates now. Now you have the Nobel Peace Prize, right? Now you can say things and you can be outrageous, right? But before we go there, I really just want you to talk a little bit. I mean, Dr. Mukwege, for those of you who've never been to Bukavu, what he's created in Bukavu is really, it's remarkable. It's like the rising lotus out of nothing. And he has many projects there, and City of Joy we're partners in that project. But talk a little about what you're doing there to heal women and to transform women, because I think that's so positive.
Yeah. When I treated the first time a woman, I'm a medical doctor, so I did what I was supposed to do. And after to treat thousands of women, I just start to ask myself a question. If I was really, what I was doing was what was needed. Why? Because only after to treat women and ask them to go back home, most of them just were refusing or coming back with other complaining for other things. And there, I just understand one thing. We are treating only body, but you are not treating the mind. So we try to get psychologists and social assistants to help women on the psychological side. This was the second pillar that we created at the hospital. And there, we just understood that it was really very effective when women will become strong physically and strong mentally. They were ready to go back home. But another question was, when they are completely rejected by the family, how we could send them back home without really to be autonomous. And there we start the third pillar to support them economically. And at this moment, I think that I met with Eve, and we start to think what we could do. The City of Joy was drawn by women, girls. They decided to say, okay, if our family don't want us to go back, maybe we need to get a place where we can learn to get a new profile so we can take care of ourselves. So this was the third pillar. And the last pillar, we saw that when women are enough strong physically, strong psychologically, and economically they are able to be autonomous, there's a question of dignity came. And most of them were coming back at the hospital asking us how they can get justice, how they can get the perpetrators to apologize for what happened to them. So then we create the fourth pillar, who is the legal assistance. But today the big problem that we are facing is that we are pushing women to go to justice. And it's normal, because without justice, we can't overcome the problem of rape in the society. Women want not only that the perpetrators can apologize, or the government, or soldiers when this happens, but they want also to get reparation. And this reparation, after to go through justice, the end should be to get a reparation. And most of the time when we are talking about reparation, people have impression that reparation is only compensation in giving money. But when we talk with victims, most of them, it's not only the question of money. It's a question of to restore their dignity. And this question of dignity can be treated in a different way. Sometimes maybe it can be just all the village to say, what happened to you? We didn't protect you, and this was wrong for us. Most of the time it can be enough for women to feel that, okay, my dignity is back, they apologize for what happened, and maybe some of them were asking us maybe to build a memorial so everyone can sit and say, this was wrong. We don't want to see it again in our community.
Maybe we should have a reparation tax. And every corporation
This is
that
good
works
idea.
in Congo, no, it just occurred to me, we should have a reparation tax. And every corporation that works in the Congo has to pay a reparation tax for their company being part of the wars that led to rape, right? And it would just be a certain percentage that goes to the women,
Yeah, this,
right?
this
A
can be
reparation tax,
it can be a revolution.
right?
Yeah, exactly. Because I think that when I remember when
Right.
I went with Jessica, we tried to meet women in all the Congo. We travel all over the Congo, and really, I think that in one village is called Songomboyo, we met women, and now it is 15 years. The perpetrators were convicted, but they're still waiting the reparation. And for me, I think that it's not the question of money. It's not the question of to get capacity to do it. The problem is this will. And I think that this idea to say, okay, this is a problem, we have really to pay tax for it. But I'm a little bit worried. If we create a tax for it, maybe men will get impression that we can pay.
No, the
and
corporations,
do it.
the corporation.
So, corporation.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it's a
We
two-prong.
need
It's a
really to
two-prong.
think
We have to
how
develop
to get
it. We
a
have to
good
develop it.
to get a good idea.
It's a
how,
beginning.
How
It's a
really to
beginning.
do it. It's a beginning.
It's a beginning.
Thank you.
We're going to take a few questions, and then we're going to come back. Does anyone, or responses, anything? I wish we could talk. Yes, in the back.
Hi, good evening, Dr. Mukwege. My name is Colette Bishogo, and I'm actually from Bukavu as well. So thank you for being here. And my question to you is with regards to the work that you do with the Congolese society. I know that at present, there's a big divide between the East and the West, and things like diabetes is such a huge stigma in society. So how have you gone about just ensure that the population is a lot more aware and understanding of rape?
Yeah. Of course, I think that the stigma really is a big problem. And I don't know how we can face this stigma for women if really we don't work on reparation. And for me, reparation is really something that we should do, because it's only the one way that women can feel that the community, the country, is supporting them, just to say this should not happen, and just show really that the community understands what happened to women and they want to support them. It's only, for me, the one way that we can fight against stigma. And another thing is, each society could maybe work a lot to see how to shift the shame. And I know that in some countries, I can see the experience of India. Women are really fighting a lot. And this is an example where really women coming together, they can shift the shame from women to perpetrators. And this really, I think that we need to work with the social norms and get the organization of women to be strong so they can support the women who are victims. It's a way maybe to do to change this stigma.
Can I also address that? You know, women who graduate from City of Joy go back to their communities. And now, because it's been going on for so long, there are actually many women in those communities who have gone to City of Joy. So there's actually kind of groups, City of Joy groups in that community. And because when women return, they're in such amazing shape, they kind of become instant leaders in those communities. And so they go back without the shame, without they're not buying into the stigma anymore. They're putting the shame on the perpetrators. And because they have now more sisters in their community who have been through the program, they're now in solidarity with that. So it's beginning to shift the communities in a very big way. And I think it's really sister solidarity on a grassroots level, because when women start to shift and then they have other sisters who are shifting, then the whole structure begins to shift, you know? Can I just tell you one quick story? You know, at our first graduation, a woman had come and her father had exiled her from the community because she had been raped and had scorned her. And midway through the program, he came to hear about her and he met her, and he couldn't believe how much she had changed. I mean, what she looked like, what she was talking, he was in shock. And he came to the graduation and he got up and he said, I am in love with my daughter. I can't believe the woman she's become. She will be the leader of our community. We will bring her back, and she will be the leader now. And to me, that was the greatest hope I had felt in the Congo, that her father, who had once been the person who had stigmatized her and ostracized her, was now saying, come be our leader. And we've seen that in a lot of communities, and we've seen that with a lot of women beginning to happen. You know, I wish it was a faster process, you know. Yes, over there. Yes. Yes.
Hi. Just a thought, but you brought up the men, and you also brought up the men who have been rejected. Has there been given any thought to creating a city of hope for the men who have been rejected, because they are the ones who continue or will continue to perpetrate the rapes? And so I just think that just like the father was able to change his mind, maybe these men, we can get them in time and help the women and make it build up the camaraderie between the two groups.
Have you thought about that?
Yeah, I think that really to take care of men is a little bit difficult. I think no, please. We are treating for example, I can just give an example. We have, it's about 1% of men who are raped, we are taking care at the hospital. And even doing the same with psychologists, supporting them in the same way. But the big question is, women are not, I don't know if my English is, women are not living for themselves. They are living also for their children, for the community. And even if it happened for women, they still have this feeling that I have responsibility for my family, for my community. So fighting for their life is not only for their life, but they're fighting for the right of all the members of the community. But when it happened to men, it's like I'm not men at all. And even if you support them, you give them all that, the needs that we are giving to women, our experience is that many of them are just doing suicide.
Yeah,
Yes, yeah, exactly. And this is horrible. I think that this is what we can experience at Panzi. So I don't know if we create the same structure, we need really to be more strong and get other good ideas how we can support men.
And I would also say, I mean, I think Dr. Mukwege said it earlier on. When we started, we tried to start this V-Man program, which was reaching out to men who had either been perpetrators or who wanted to be part of dismantling patriarchy and systems that were oppressing women. And I have to tell you, it's not an easy go. It's just not an easy go. I mean, I think if we opened a City of Joy for men, we'd be hard-pressed to get men to come, because part of acknowledging, part of breaking the silence as a man, as Tony Porter says, you know, you have to step out of the man box. You have to be willing to say, I'm breaking code, I'm breaking solidarity, I'm breaking allegiance with the patriarchy reality, which is going to put me outside that structure. And to come to a place like City of Joy as a man would be admitting that you want a new structure. Now, we can look at everything that's happened over the last 50 years since the beginning of the movement to end violence against women, coming up to Me Too. Even looking at the last years, how many men have we seen in this country come forward to own their role in misogyny, to come forward to own their role in sexual violence, to come forward to say, I am responsible and I want to go through a period of, and a process of self-interrogation and self-investigation and apology so I can be part of a new world in which women are safe and free? How many have we seen? None, 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 okay? So I'm saying, and I'm saying this in a way that's both angry and hopeful. I think we have to start creating spaces and an opening where men can come forward to begin to say, I want to change, I want to open up, I want to look at my own behavior, I want to do self-reckoning, I want to own my deeds, and I want to transform. And that means really essentially dismantling the basic pillars of patriarchy. And there have to be a cadre of men, just like in the early days of the feminist movement, who come forward and are brave to say, we are going to be those men who begin that process. And we are going to risk being traitors, and we are going to risk stepping out of that world, that man box, and we are going to break down the walls to a new world. And Dr. Mukwege is leading that revolution as far as I'm concerned. He is leading it. But he's got to have other men by his side who are willing and bold to stand up and say, we're going to join that cause, and we're going to fight that fight. And that's how the world's going to change. You know, it's got to be men, because men are doing the raping. Yes, yes, in the back.
Thank you. Dr. Mukwege, it's an honor for you to be here. We are very delighted. I have the privilege of being a professor in the Gender Studies department here at Hunter. My name is Rupal Oza, and I'm writing a book on rape in India. One of the questions, and over the 3 years of research that I've done, is you talked about impunity, and that is absolutely true. Women who are raped in India are given compensation by the government. But the issue to me, it strikes me, is not only about the fact of impunity, as Eve, you were talking about, of the men, but also that the compensation often seems like payoff. But it really, to me, at the end of the day, seems like about a question really about the recognition of personhood that is not allotted to women anywhere. So if you have Korean comfort women who are not being acknowledged, just even for asking for an apology, it's about the fact that women are not, at the end of the day, accorded basic personhood. And that differs, of course, according to caste and race and so on. So I was wondering if you had something to say about that. Thank you.
In addition to the acknowledgement that might be impossible to get men to do the same thing in your City of Joy, is it possible at all with the mores of some of these families where the father whether the victim is unable to return to a family, is ostracized, is there any way to begin working in terms of, it's not even education, but it's changing, evolving some of the mores that they've been so used to, that God forbid their son or their daughter is raped, that they cannot return home. They are set out into the wild, so to speak, to fend for themselves. I mean, this sounds so archaic. The question is it possible at all, whether it's in the Congo, whether it's in India, whether it's any of the countries that you've traveled around the world, where the rape victim cannot go back, is there any way to begin an education within the culture where they can understand and accept and learn that it's wrong to ostracize this person who has been violated?
Well, I think that's changing everywhere just by the basic work that we're doing. But you know, it's interesting because like there's direct ostracization, but there's indirect. I think every culture, when a woman breaks the silence and comes out, is ostracized. It really, on some level, you are seen as a problem. You were seen as somebody who shouldn't have said what you've said. I mean, I just finished a book where I've really done something where I've really gone deeply into my own abuse. And the whole time I was writing that book, I felt there was just a world of people going, don't do this, don't say this, don't. And I've been doing this for most of my life. There is an unspoken taboo. There's an unspoken wall saying to every woman, do not break the silence, do not tell this story, do not come out. And just as the woman said brilliantly, you are not a person, you don't exist, you don't have a right to this, you're not an independent entity who has the right to speak of yourself as a person with value. And you put race on top of that and you put class on top of that, it diminishes and diminishes. So I think part of it is like, how do we ensure women in every culture that they have the right to be full beings and with personhood who can speak up, you know?
Yes, but I think the big question is really about the social norms. And in many countries, you can see that these social norms are just created, and when the culture or the society believe in these social norms, and they're just following these social norms, and at the end, women have impression that it should be like that. Even it's wrong, but they accept it. And I think that the big problem is how to change these social norms. This really is a big question. And there, I don't believe that we can change the social norms with only women. We need really to associate men so we can get result really to change these social norms. And if the social norms change, of course, men and women are equal. And this is natural. But when we're born, we don't have in our DNA the inequality. This is something that's created by the society and depend with the society where you are.
We have time for one more question. In the back there? Yes.
Hey, Dr. Mukwege, thank you very much for coming. You definitely are an inspiration to everybody in this room. My name is Jim Gokwe. I'm from Congo myself. Very proud to have fellow Congolese Nobel Prize winner. My question is, a lot of us here, in the diaspora, we ask ourselves, how can we help? How can we support Congo? And a lot of us don't get to go back often. So my question for you is, how can people like myself from Congo that live here, how can we contribute to your success and help make a difference in the country, in the healthcare and supporting your hospital and things like that?
Good question.
When I'm talking with the diaspora, the Congolese diaspora, I think that you can do many things. And then, for example, now we are talking about social norms. How you, as a member of the diaspora, you have the experience of other country. How can you work in your own country to make this change of the social norms? This is one thing. And I think that is very important. I want just to give you one example. We have a tribe in Congo where it's forbidden for men to go to see women where they are washing at the river. If you can do this, they will just exclude you and reject you in the village. So we got a discussion with this community. And during the discussion, I just told them, okay, this is really a good example. So men are not authorized to go to see women naked when they are washing. And all the community have impression that this is a terrible thing. If it happens, you can't live at all in the same village. They have just to exclude you and even sometimes to be aggressive and even kill you. So when we start to talk with men in the village, so I ask them, if it's terrible just to see, how can you accept that someone can touch and even destroy a woman? And then we start to just to think with them. And at the end, all the chief of the village, they said, really, we understand that rape is the same as to sin. But you understand that when men decide that you can't see women who are naked, it's only because there's a wife, and they have this feeling that they belong to them. And this, I think that we have possibility to talk with people and make the things happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to just close by asking Dr. Mukwege, now as a Nobel Peace Prize winner, to just give us your dream vision for the Congo in the next 10 years. What's your vision?
Yeah. Really, for the Congo, my dream is, I'm sure that this question, sometime when I'm talking about this question, if you know that we don't have the last 10 years, we could not talk about this question with the president. And he's a leader. And if the leader don't take the decision, how we can succeed to change things? And to be in the condition that rape is denied as a problem of the society. This was really a terrible thing for me. And I think that when I received this Nobel Peace Prize, I was very happy to see that the suffering of the women of Congo was recognized by the international community. This was really something, I just feel that not the award himself, but this recognition was really a big thing for me. Now, what I hope to see in Congo is that men can come together and just say what happened in our country is not acceptable. And we men want to be actors of change in our society, in our community. And if this can start to the top, this can be really wonderful. I hope that we can't really rebuild Congo without women. And if we have to do something to rebuild the country with women, we need really to understand when they are raped, how they are destroyed mentally, and we can't build the country with the people who are completely destroyed. So I hope that men will take action in Congo to make the change of the situation of women. Thank you.
I just want to say that I know I speak for all of us when I say that it is not only an honor and a privilege, but it is so beautiful to be in this room with such an extraordinary man and human being. And I know for me, he has kept my faith in men alive for the last 13 years. He really has. And I just want to say that there are many things you can do to support Pansy, the foundation, the hospital, City of Joy, and you can go on the internet and find out. But one thing we can all really do is look at the ways in our own lives that we're not speaking out against racist patriarchy all the time, where we silence ourselves, where we're quiet, where we normalize it, where we say it's okay, where where we don't say what we're really feeling about how someone's acting or behaving, where we don't stand up for the people who are more marginalized than we are, where we don't look towards our brothers and sisters in the Congo who are actually hurting because of our own greed and our own consumption. Like to be awake to the suffering, to be awake to the beauty, to be awake to people's desires to rise and have dignity in their own lives and in their own ways. And I thank everyone so much for coming tonight, and I bow to you, Dr. Mukwege, for your wisdom, for your courage, for your beauty. Thank you so much.
Thank you.